Welcome to our channel Minutes audiobook. Today we diving into 1984 Inch by George Orwell, book. Please subscribe for daily videos. 1984 Inch by George Orwell. This will cover the key events, themes, and character developments in the book, organized by chapters. Here's a brief overview of what the full breakdown would cover. Introduction to 1984 by George Orwell. 1984 is one of the most influential works of the 20th century, a haunting portrayal of totalitarianism and the extreme consequences of unchecked government control. Written by George Orwell and published in 1949, the novel reflects Orwell's deep concerns about the dangers of oppressive political systems and the potential for a future where individual freedoms are completely eradicated. The story is set in Oceania, one of three superstates in the world of 1984, and the protagonist, Winston Smith, lives under a harsh regime that exercises total control over its citizens. The party, headed by the omnipotent figure of Big Brother, dictates every aspect of life, from the thoughts of individuals to their behavior and beliefs. The party enforces its ideology through a mixture of propaganda, surveillance, and violent repression, including the use of the thought police and the erasure of historical truth. Orwell's novel focuses on themes of government surveillance, mind control, totalitarianism, and the loss of personal freedoms. It is a dystopian narrative that critiques the dangers of totalitarian regimes, particularly reflecting Orwell's experiences with the rise of fascism and communism during the early 20th century. 1984 explores the destructive potential of a government that controls not just the actions of its citizens, but also their thoughts and beliefs, effectively eliminating the possibility of rebellion or free expression. Book 1. Introduction to the dystopian world of Oceania and its totalitarian government, led by Big Brother. Winston Smith, the protagonist, is introduced, showing his daily struggles under the party's strict control. Winston's dissatisfaction with the party, his work at the Ministry of Truth, and his desire for rebellion. Winston's relationship with Julia develops, and their secret affair becomes a form of resistance to the party's suppression of personal freedoms. Book 2. The deepening relationship between Winston and Julia, as they find ways to defy the party. Winston's increasing questioning of the party's ideology and his growing understanding of its mechanisms of control. O'Brien's involvement. Winston believes O'Brien, a high-ranking party member, might share his anti-party sentiments, and they begin a covert association. The betrayal, O'Brien's manipulation and Winston and Julia's eventual arrest. Book 3. Winston's torture and re-education in the Ministry of Love under O'Brien's supervision. The breaking of Winston's spirit as he is forced to confront the party's brutal methods of psychological control, including the destruction of his sense of individuality. The final surrender, Winston's betrayal of Julia under pressure and his eventual acceptance of Big Brother. Chapter 1. Setting. The story begins in Airstrip 1, formerly known as Britain, in the superstate of Oceania, where the totalitarian government, known as the Party, reigns. The oppressive regime is led by the figurehead, Big Brother, whose image is omnipresent. The party controls all aspects of life, including thought, speech, and even private emotions, through a combination of propaganda, surveillance, and terror. Introduction of Winston Smith. Winston is a low-ranking party member working in the Ministry of Truth, where his job involves altering historical records to match the party's constantly changing narrative. He despises the party and feels the weight of its control on his every action, even when it comes to something as basic as his thoughts. The significance of the setting. We learn that Winston lives in a dilapidated building in the city of London, now known as Airstrip 1, part of the superstate of Oceania. The setting is marked by constant surveillance, as every room, even private spaces, is monitored by telescreens. The party also controls language, limiting its citizens' ability to think critically, through newspeak. Chapter 2. Winston's private rebellion. Winston begins to write in his secret diary, a crime known as thought crime. This small act of rebellion marks the start of his journey towards independent thought. He is paranoid about being caught, but also feels a growing need to express his true thoughts. Introduction of the party's power. The party's control over the people is absolute. Even the act of thinking against the party is considered criminal, and anyone caught in rebellion is punished mercilessly. Oceania's state of perpetual war. The novel hints at the perpetual state of war Oceania is in, which serves to keep the population in a constant state of fear and submission. Chapter 3. Winston's thoughts on the party. Winston's growing disgust with the party is highlighted as he thinks about the past and the constant rewriting of history. He realizes that the party controls the truth by controlling the past, as historical records are continually adjusted to match the party's needs. The party's surveillance. Winston notices a face in the crowd, a young woman named Julia. The pervasive surveillance system known as Big Brother constantly monitors citizens, tracking their actions and behaviors. The party's erasure of history. Winston's job at the Ministry of Truth involves rewriting history. This concept is crucial as it shows how the party manipulates reality itself, eliminating any record that contradicts its narrative. Chapter 4. Julia's letter. Winston receives a note from Julia that simply reads, "I love you." This sparks a secret affair between the two, allowing Winston to feel a sense of rebellion and emotional freedom, even if only for a short time. Their relationship. The affair becomes an act of defiance against the party, representing personal freedom and the natural desire for individuality and intimacy. Chapter 5. Winston and Julia's first meeting. Winston and Julia meet secretly, and they engage in a passionate affair. Their relationship develops as a form of resistance against the party's suppression of love and personal connection. The nature of rebellion. They discuss the party's control over sexuality and relationships, and how the party seeks to eliminate personal bonds in favor of loyalty to Big Brother. Chapter 6. O'Brien's influence. Winston begins to believe that O'Brien, a high-ranking member of the party, might be a secret rebel, sharing Winston's disillusionment with the party. O'Brien offers him a chance to join a secret underground group, the Brotherhood. The tension of fear. Winston's paranoia and fear of being caught by the thought police increase, but he continues to resist because of his growing desire to break free from the party's control. Chapter 7. Winston's growing dissatisfaction. Winston begins to feel the weight of the party's control over his life, from its constant surveillance to the erasure of history. His growing dissatisfaction with the regime deepens as he contemplates the hopelessness of his situation. A glimpse of the Brotherhood. Winston dreams of meeting O'Brien in person to learn more about the Brotherhood and whether there is any hope for rebellion. Chapter 8. The betrayal. Winston and Julia are arrested, and it is revealed that O'Brien was not a rebel, but a loyal party member. Their secret rebellion was a trap set by the party to root out dissidents. Winston's torture. Winston is taken to the Ministry of Love, a misnomer for a torture chamber, where he is subjected to brutal physical and psychological torture. Chapter 9. Winston's re-education. Winston undergoes extensive torture under O'Brien's supervision. O'Brien reveals that the party's ultimate goal is not to rule the world, but to maintain power for the sake of power itself. The final betrayal. Winston is broken down, forced to betray Julia, and ultimately comes to accept the party's dominance over every aspect of his life. He becomes a shell of his former self. Chapter 10. The end of Winston's resistance. Winston is released back into society after his re-education. He now fully accepts the party's rule and worships Big Brother, having been completely stripped of his rebellious thoughts and emotions. The collapse of Winston's identity. The novel ends with Winston's final submission, his acceptance of the party's control over truth and reality. He has become one of the party's loyal followers, symbolizing the totality of the regime's power to suppress individual thought. Conclusion of 1984 by George Orwell. The conclusion of 1984 is both tragic and chilling, providing a stark commentary on the absolute power of totalitarian regimes and the devastating impact of psychological manipulation and control on the human spirit. Winston's final submission. By the novel's end, Winston Smith, the protagonist, has been thoroughly broken by the party. After his arrest, interrogation, and extensive psychological and physical torture at the hands of O'Brien, Winston is forced to betray his lover, Julia. His rebellious thoughts are extinguished, and his will to resist the party is crushed. Through the brutal re-education process, Winston comes to understand the true nature of the party's control. It is not simply a political organization, but a mechanism designed to maintain power for its own sake, through the complete domination of every aspect of life. In the Ministry of Love, Winston is subjected to intense and systematic torture, ultimately experiencing his greatest fear, being confined in the infamous Room 101 where individuals are confronted with their worst nightmares. Winston's personal nightmare involves rats, and in the face of this terror, he betrays Julia. This act of betrayal is a pivotal moment. Winston's relationship with Julia, the last bastion of his resistance, collapses. His personal loyalty is severed, and in this moment of despair, Winston fully surrenders to the party. The destruction of individual thought. The culmination of Winston's re-education is his final acceptance of the party's complete control over truth and reality. Winston's understanding of doublethink, the ability to accept two contradictory beliefs simultaneously, becomes ingrained in his psyche. He is made to believe in whatever the party dictates, regardless of how absurd or contradictory it may be. The concept of reality control is paramount here. The party asserts that whatever it says is the truth, even if it is constantly changing, and this truth is enforced by the power of the state. Winston's final thoughts, in which he acknowledges his love for Big Brother, mark his ultimate surrender. He no longer possesses the capacity to question the party or desire freedom. His individual thoughts have been completely erased, and he has become a loyal and obedient subject of the party, serving as a symbol of the regime's ability to crush dissent and reshape reality. The hollow victory of the party. The final paragraphs of the novel emphasize the party's overwhelming success in maintaining its control over the people of Oceania. The regime's power is absolute and unchallenged, not through brute force alone, but by eradicating the very possibility of rebellion in the mind. The party does not need to be omnipresent at all times because it has so thoroughly indoctrinated its citizens that the concept of rebellion is no longer conceivable. Orwell's conclusion is bleak: the party's tyranny is eternal, not because of its military strength or cunning, but because it has succeeded in breaking the individual spirit. Winston's transformation from a man of thoughts and desires into a hollow vessel of obedience serves as the ultimate victory for the party. By eradicating Winston's desire for personal freedom and love, the party has shown its complete control over not only action and speech but also emotion and thought. Themes of power and control. The conclusion reinforces the novel's central themes about the nature of totalitarianism. The party's power does not lie in external forces alone, but in its absolute control over reality. The manipulation of truth, history, and language enables the party to maintain an unchallenged reign, rendering any hope of resistance or change meaningless. War is peace. Freedom is slavery. Ignorance is strength. These paradoxical slogans of the party sum up the contradictions inherent in totalitarian rule. Power is sustained by controlling the very essence of reality and thought, creating a society in which truth and freedom are irrelevant. The party's ultimate goal is not to create a perfect society or to foster prosperity, but to maintain power for its own sake. The ideological aspect is secondary to the desire for complete control, and as Winston finally realizes, the party's domination is eternal, not just politically but also psychologically. Orwell's warning. Orwell's 1984 remains a powerful critique of the dangers of unchecked government power. The novel is a warning about the fragility of personal freedoms in the face of a totalitarian state. Orwell paints a picture of a society in which every thought, word, and action is controlled by a single entity, illustrating the terrifying consequences of a regime that seeks not only to control what people do but also what they think. The conclusion of 1984 makes clear that individual freedom and truth can only be maintained if there is resistance against tyranny. It is a grim portrayal of a world where resistance becomes impossible, and the human spirit is ultimately crushed. The novel's final moments, in which Winston, now fully loyal to Big Brother, stare at the image of the party's absolute power, serve as a final reminder of the dangers of authoritarianism. In essence, Orwell's 1984 offers a warning about the fragility of liberty and the dangers of complacency in the face of growing government control. The dystopian world Orwell imagines is not just one of fear and violence, but one in which the very concept of reality is manufactured, and human beings are reduced to mere automatons, obedient, fearful, and devoid of any personal autonomy. Legacy of 1984. 1984 has had a lasting impact on both literature and political discourse. Its exploration of surveillance, truth manipulation, and the dangers of absolute power resonates more than ever, especially in an age where technology is increasingly used for surveillance and control. Orwell's portrayal of a world in which objective reality is manipulated to serve political ends continues to offer a chilling reflection of how power can corrupt and how it can shape and distort truth. The novel's conclusion, which highlights the complete dominance of the party and the destruction of personal autonomy, remains a powerful and cautionary tale. Through Winston's tragic journey, Orwell urges readers to remain vigilant about the dangers of totalitarianism and the importance of preserving truth, freedom, and individuality in the face of ever-growing state control. Thank you for watching. Keep support for daily videos. Make sure like, comment and share. Don't forget to subscribe our channel Minutes Audiobook. See you on the next video.